They called him the drunk night watchman, sleeping on the job with whiskey on his breath. The office workers mocked him, management wanted him fired, and everyone treated him like a failure, until he uncovered the largest foreign intelligence operation on American soil. Welcome to Those Who Left a Trace, the channel that honors the forgotten heroes who changed the world in silence. Today I'm going to tell you about a man whose alcoholism hid one of the most dangerous secrets in national security. Tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from today? And if you believe that sometimes our greatest struggles prepare us for our greatest moments, hit that subscribe button, because this story will show you exactly what that means. October 8th, 2024, 11:47 p.m., Marcus Thompson sits in the security office of the prestigious Meridian Corporate Tower in downtown Seattle, staring at a bank of monitors that show empty hallways and darkened offices. His uniform is wrinkled, his badge slightly crooked, and the coffee mug beside his keyboard contains more bourbon than caffeine. At 47 years old, Marcus looks older than his years, with graying hair that needs cutting and eyes that carry the weight of too many sleepless nights and too many bottles of whiskey. The building directory lists Meridian Tower as home to 17 different companies, consulting firms, tech startups, investment groups, and international trading companies. To the outside world, it's just another gleaming monument to Seattle's booming economy, a 32-story testament to American prosperity and innovation. To Marcus Thompson, it's become his purgatory, a place where he's slowly drinking himself to death while the world moves on without him, where each night brings the same routine of monitoring empty corridors, while battling demons that bourbon can never quite silence. But Marcus wasn't always the building's resident failure, wasn't always the drunk security guard that cleaning crews whispered about and executives avoided in elevators. 7 years ago, he was CIA Senior Intelligence Officer Marcus James Thompson, specializing in counterintelligence operations targeting foreign intelligence services operating on American soil. His assignment was identifying and neutralizing enemy agents operating within American businesses, academic institutions, and government agencies. He was extraordinarily good at his job, very good. His unit had a 94% success rate in identifying hostile operatives, and Marcus personally was responsible for exposing 12 different spy networks operating throughout the United States. That was before Operation Blackwater in Kabul, Afghanistan, August 15th, 2017. Marcus was leading a joint CIA military operation to capture a high-value target who was coordinating attacks against American forces throughout the region. The intelligence was solid, verified through multiple sources. The planning was meticulous, and the execution should have been routine. Another successful mission in a career filled with them. Instead, Marcus walked his six-man team directly into an ambush that had been orchestrated by someone with access to classified American intelligence, someone who had provided enemy forces with detailed information about American operational plans, timing, and personnel. The attack lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, Marcus was the only survivor, bleeding from shrapnel wounds and watching his teammates die, while enemy fighters melted away into the Afghan countryside like shadows. The subsequent investigation revealed that someone within American intelligence had provided detailed information about the operation to hostile forces. The betrayal came from inside the system Marcus had dedicated his life to serving, from someone who wore the same uniform and took the same oath to protect American lives. Marcus spent 8 months recovering from his physical injuries, undergoing multiple surgeries to repair damage from shrapnel and burns. But the psychological wounds never healed, never even began to close. The investigation into the intelligence leak went nowhere, classified as inconclusive, and buried in bureaucratic files that would never see daylight. The people responsible for his team's deaths remained free, protected by the same system that had failed to protect the men who died under Marcus's command. Unable to trust his own colleagues, unwilling to work within a system he knew was compromised, Marcus resigned from the CIA and disappeared into civilian life. The transition was brutal beyond anything he had imagined. Skills that made him exceptional at identifying enemy agents were useless in the private sector. His hypervigilance, honed by years of counterintelligence work, made normal social interactions impossible. And the guilt over his teammates' deaths drove him to find solace in alcohol, the only thing that could quiet the voices of 6 men calling his name in his sleep. For 3 years, Marcus has been working security at Meridian Tower, a job he got through a veterans employment program that didn't ask too many questions about his drinking or the gaps in his employment history. The work is mindless. Monitor cameras, check doors, write incident reports about nothing more serious than someone working late or a delivery person arriving after hours. It's exactly the kind of meaningless employment that allows him to remain functional while steadily destroying himself with alcohol, maintaining just enough sobriety to perform basic duties, while drinking away the memories that threaten to consume him. But tonight, as Marcus reviews the security footage from the day's shift, nursing his bourbon-laced coffee and trying to stay awake through another meaningless shift, something catches his attention. It's subtle, barely noticeable to someone without his specialized training, but unmistakable to a former counterintelligence specialist. Patterns of behavior that suggest coordinated surveillance and intelligence-gathering operations. Room 1247, listed in the building directory as Pacific Rim Consulting, has been receiving an unusual number of visitors over the past month. The visitors don't behave like typical business clients meeting with consultants about legitimate commercial activities. They arrive at staggered intervals, never together, and always use different entrances to the building. They carry briefcases but no business cards, speak quietly in elevators, and never seem to conduct meetings that require documents, presentations, or any of the normal activities associated with business consulting. More significantly, their movement patterns through the building suggest they're conducting counter-surveillance, checking for cameras, timing security patrols, mapping exit routes with the systematic precision of people trained in covert operations. Marcus recognizes the techniques because he taught them to CIA operatives for 15 years, drilled them into agents who would use these skills to operate behind enemy lines. Marcus pulls up the visitor logs for Pacific Rim Consulting and begins cross-referencing names, times, and access patterns with a methodical approach that once made him one of the CIA's most effective counterintelligence officers. What he finds sends a chill down his spine that has nothing to do with the bourbon in his coffee. The visitors are using false identities, rotated systematically to avoid pattern recognition. Their documented business purposes are vague and inconsistent, and their access schedules align with the building's security vulnerabilities in ways that suggest extensive prior knowledge of the facility's protection protocols. This isn't a consulting firm conducting legitimate business activities. This is a foreign intelligence operation, and it's been running under the noses of American security services for months, possibly years. Marcus's hands shake as he scrolls through months of security data, alcohol withdrawal mixing with adrenaline as his dormant CIA training reasserts itself like muscle memory. He hasn't felt this kind of operational clarity in years. The familiar rush of pieces clicking together in patterns that reveal hidden truths and dangerous realities. The bourbon fog that has clouded his thinking for 3 years begins to lift, replaced by the sharp focus that once made him exceptional at hunting foreign operatives. Pacific Rim Consulting occupies a corner suite on the 12th floor, with panoramic views of Elliott Bay and direct sight lines to several sensitive government facilities throughout the Seattle area. The company's official registration lists it as providing international business development services, but Marcus's analysis of their visitor patterns suggests something far more sophisticated and sinister. The individuals entering and leaving the office aren't random clients seeking business advice. They're rotating through a carefully orchestrated schedule designed to avoid overlap while maintaining continuous operational presence. Marcus recognizes a technique from his CIA days. It's called distributed dead drops, where multiple operatives access the same location at different times to exchange intelligence without direct contact, minimizing the risk of exposure while maintaining operational security. Marcus enhances the security camera footage, zooming in on faces, cataloging clothing, noting behavioral tics and movement patterns. His counterintelligence training allows him to read body language and movement patterns like a specialized language that most people never learn to speak. What he sees confirms his worst suspicions. These are trained operatives, probably foreign intelligence officers, using Pacific Rim Consulting as a cover for activities that have nothing to do with business development and everything to do with gathering intelligence on American capabilities. One visitor in particular catches Marcus's attention and triggers memories he thought alcohol had permanently suppressed. A woman in her early 40s, professionally dressed in expensive clothing that suggests significant financial resources, who has visited the suite 6 times in the past month. She carries herself with the confident posture of someone accustomed to authority, but her eyes constantly scan for threats and exits with the automatic vigilance of someone trained in combat operations. When she walks, she unconsciously maintains spacing that keeps her out of physical reach of other people. These are combat reflexes, ingrained through years of training and operational experience. Marcus runs her image through his mental database of known foreign operatives, sifting through faces and files that a CIA training embedded in his memory. The face is familiar, but he can't place it immediately to the haze of 3 years of heavy drinking. Then, like a lightning bolt of clarity, he remembers Elena Volkov, photographed entering the Russian consulate in San Francisco 3 years ago during a routine surveillance operation. She was suspected of being SVR, Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, but never formally identified due to diplomatic immunity restrictions that prevented American intelligence from taking direct action. If Elena Volkov is operating out of Meridian Tower, then Pacific Rim Consulting isn't just a spy nest conducting routine intelligence gathering. It's a major operational hub for Russian intelligence operations on the West Coast, possibly coordinating activities throughout the entire Pacific Northwest region. Marcus reaches for his phone to call. Who? The FBI? They want evidence he can't provide without revealing his CIA background and explaining how an alcoholic security guard recognized a suspected Russian operative would raise questions he can't answer. Local police? They're not equipped to handle international espionage and would likely dismiss his concerns as the paranoid ravings of someone with obvious mental health issues. His former CIA contacts? He burned those bridges when he resigned in anger and disgust, and the people who might listen to him are the same people who might have been responsible for his team's death in Afghanistan. That's when Marcus realizes the terrible irony of his situation, the cruel joke that fate has played on him. He's discovered what could be the largest foreign intelligence operation in recent American history, and he's probably the only person in a position to stop it. But he's also a discredited alcoholic security guard whose warnings would be dismissed as the paranoid ravings of someone who's clearly lost his grip on reality. Marcus takes a long drink from his bourbon-laced coffee and makes a decision that will either redeem his career or destroy what's left of his life. He's going to investigate Pacific Rim Consulting himself, using skills he swore he'd never use again and sobriety he's not sure he can maintain. The 6 men who died under his command in Afghanistan deserve justice, and the American people deserve protection from enemies operating on their own soil. The first step is gathering actionable intelligence through systematic surveillance and analysis. Marcus accesses the building's complete security system, pulling footage from every camera, every entry point, every floor, creating a comprehensive database of everyone who has entered or left Pacific Rim Consulting over the past 6 months. He maps their routes through the building, times their visits down to the minute, identifies their vehicles, and begins building profiles of their activities and associations. What emerges is a picture of an operation far more extensive than he initially suspected. Pacific Rim Consulting isn't just gathering intelligence for future use. They're coordinating with assets throughout the Pacific Northwest region. Visitors to the suite include people who work at Boeing's defense facilities, Microsoft's government contract division, Amazon's cloud services for federal agencies, and University of Washington's advanced research programs. These aren't random business contacts. They're American citizens with access to sensitive information who may be working as Russian assets. This is industrial espionage on a massive scale, targeting America's most sensitive technological and defense capabilities. The intelligence being gathered could compromise national security, economic competitiveness, and military preparedness for decades. But as Marcus continues his investigation, he realizes something even more disturbing. The Russians aren't just gathering intelligence for future use. They're preparing to conduct an active operation that will cause immediate damage to American interests. Marcus realizes he stumbled onto something that requires immediate action, but taking that action will expose him to the same people who betrayed his team in Afghanistan. The alcohol that has been his escape for 3 years suddenly feels like a liability he can't afford. The voices of 6 dead men seem to be calling his name again, but this time they're not accusations, they're encouragement. But 6 men died under his command because someone within American intelligence was working for the enemy. Marcus failed to protect them then, but he won't fail to protect his country now. He pours the bourbon down the drain and begins the most important operation of his career. 2:47 a.m., Marcus conducts his first real surveillance operation in 3 years, using building access and security systems to monitor Pacific Rim Consulting's activities with the systematic precision that once made him one of the CIA's most effective counterintelligence officers. The alcohol withdrawal makes his hands shake and his vision blur occasionally, but his mind is clearer than it's been since Afghanistan. He's remembered why he became a counterintelligence officer in the first place: to protect Americans from enemies who hide in plain sight, wearing business suits and carrying briefcases instead of uniforms and weapons. The office suite is equipped with sophisticated electronic equipment disguised as standard business technology. What appears to be a conference room projector is actually a high-powered communication system capable of encrypted transmissions to foreign locations. Desktop computers that look like normal business workstations are configured for signals intelligence gathering and data mining operations that can penetrate supposedly secure networks. The furniture itself has been modified to conceal surveillance equipment, recording devices, and communication systems that would be invisible to casual inspection. Most damning of all, Marcus discovers that Pacific Rim Consulting has been accessing the building's internet infrastructure to conduct digital surveillance of other tenants. They're monitoring emails, file transfers, and communications from every company in Meridian Tower, creating a comprehensive intelligence picture of Seattle's business and technology sectors. This isn't just espionage. It's a violation of American sovereignty being conducted from within American territory. Marcus documents everything with the thoroughness of someone who knows that evidence must be unassailable to be believed. He builds a case file that would impress his former colleagues at Langley, complete with photographic evidence, digital forensics, and behavioral analysis that proves Russian intelligence operations are being conducted from American soil. But as he gathers evidence, he realizes that the Russian operation is more sophisticated than typical espionage activities. The intelligence gathering focuses heavily on critical infrastructure, power grids, communication networks, transportation systems, and emergency response protocols. This isn't corporate espionage designed to give Russian companies competitive advantages in international markets. This is preparation for potential cyber warfare or physical attacks against American civilian and military targets, the kind of intelligence that would be used to plan operations designed to cause maximum damage to American society. Marcus's analysis reveals that Pacific Rim Consulting has been systematically mapping vulnerabilities in systems that keep Americans safe. They know which power stations supply electricity to military bases, which communication towers carry emergency services traffic, which transportation choke points could paralyze regional commerce. This intelligence could be used to plan attacks that would cause massive civilian casualties and economic damage, while demonstrating American vulnerability to foreign adversaries. The scope of the threat forces Marcus to confront a reality he'd been avoiding for 3 years. He may be the only person in a position to stop an attack that could kill thousands of Americans. His alcoholism, his PTSD, his distrust of the intelligence community, none of that matters compared to the lives at stake. The voices of his dead teammates seem to whisper encouragement, reminding him that failure to act is another form of betrayal. Marcus begins planning an intervention that will expose the Russian operation while protecting his own identity and maintaining operational security. He can't trust official channels, but he can create circumstances that force the authorities to discover Pacific Rim Consulting's activities independently. The evidence will speak for itself, and Marcus can remain in the background as the alcoholic security guard who happened to be in the right place at the right time. His plan is elegant in its simplicity and brutal in its execution requirements. He'll trigger a security incident that requires law enforcement response, then ensure that responding officers have access to evidence of the Russian operation. The evidence will speak for itself, and Marcus can remain in the background as the alcoholic security guard who happened to be in the right place at the right time. But Marcus's plan requires him to stay sober long enough to execute complex operational procedures while maintaining his cover as a functioning alcoholic. For someone who has been drinking heavily for 3 years, this represents a physical and psychological challenge that could be impossible to overcome. His hands shake from withdrawal. His mind struggles with clarity that feels almost painful after years of alcoholic fog, and his body rebels against the absence of chemical comfort it has learned to depend on. Marcus looks at the empty bourbon bottle beside his desk, then at the computer screen showing Russian operatives planning potential attacks against American civilians. The choice is clear, even if the execution will be the hardest thing he's ever attempted. 6 men died because he failed to protect them. He won't fail again. He calls his building supervisor and reports a possible gas leak in the Pacific Rim Consulting Suite, ensuring that emergency responders will have legal justification to enter the office and conduct a thorough inspection. Then he plants evidence of the intelligence gathering in locations where investigators will discover it during their safety inspection, making it appear to be part of the original Russian operation rather than something placed by an outside party. The plan is simple in concept but complex in execution, requiring Marcus to maintain his alcoholic security guard persona while secretly orchestrating the exposure of a foreign intelligence network. If he succeeds, he'll save American lives while remaining anonymous. If he fails, he'll either be exposed as a former CIA officer or dismissed as a delusional drunk whose discoveries are products of paranoid imagination fueled by alcohol withdrawal. Marcus prepares for the most important performance of his life, convincing everyone that he's still a failure while secretly being the hero his country needs. 6:15 a.m. The morning shift arrives at Meridian Tower to find emergency vehicles surrounding the building and Marcus Thompson sitting in a security office, looking exactly like what everyone expects. A disheveled alcoholic who called 911 about a gas leak that probably doesn't exist. His uniform is rumpled, his hair uncombed, and he's nursing a cup of coffee with hands that shake just enough to suggest ongoing alcohol withdrawal. Fire department hazmat specialists enter the Pacific Rim Consulting Suite, following standard safety protocols, and immediately discover that there is no gas leak. But their safety inspection reveals something far more disturbing. Sophisticated electronic surveillance equipment, encrypted communication systems, and computers configured for intelligence gathering operations that have no legitimate business purpose. The equipment is so advanced that it triggers immediate notification to federal authorities. FBI counterintelligence agents arrive within hours, treating the discovery as a potential national security incident requiring the highest level of investigation. Marcus watches from a security desk as federal agents document evidence of what appears to be a major foreign espionage operation, maintaining his cover perfectly by answering questions with the confused cooperation of someone who has no idea what's happening around him. "I smelled something funny around midnight," Marcus tells the FBI agents. His words slightly slurred suggest ongoing intoxication, and his manner suggesting someone who's clearly out of his depth. "Thought it might be gas, so I called it in. Didn't want the building to blow up or nothing. Just doing my job, you know?" The agents treat Marcus exactly as he expects. Politely dismissive of the drunk security guard who stumbled onto something important through sheer luck and basic responsibility. They take his statement, thank him for his cooperation, and promptly forget about him as they focus on a real investigation. In their minds, Marcus Thompson is just another civilian who happened to be in the right place at the right time. Marcus's plan works perfectly, exceeding his most optimistic expectations. The evidence he planted is discovered and documented, but it appears to be part of the original Russian operation rather than something placed by an outside party. The FBI treats Pacific Rim Consulting as a legitimate intelligence target, launching a comprehensive investigation that will ultimately expose the entire network and prevent whatever attack the Russians were planning. But Marcus's success comes with an unexpected consequence that he didn't anticipate: sobriety. The adrenaline and focus required to execute his plan have broken his physical dependence on alcohol, clearing his mind for the first time in years. Without bourbon to dull his awareness, Marcus begins to remember details about his time in Afghanistan that he had suppressed with drinking, memories that surge back with painful clarity. The intelligence leak that led to his team's ambush wasn't random or opportunistic. The timing was too precise, the enemy's knowledge too complete, their tactical response too sophisticated. Someone with access to the highest levels of American intelligence had provided detailed operational plans to hostile forces. Marcus has always assumed the betrayal came from within the CIA, but his investigation of Pacific Rim Consulting suggests a different and more disturbing possibility. What if the leak came from someone working with Russian intelligence services? What if the same network that Marcus has just exposed was responsible for the deaths of his teammates in Afghanistan? The possibility hits him like a physical blow, reframing everything he thought he knew about that terrible day and opening wounds he thought had scarred over. Marcus reviews his case files in a Russian operation, cross-referencing names, dates, and operational patterns with his memories of the Afghanistan mission that destroyed his life. What he discovers changes everything he thought he knew. Elena Volkov, the suspected SVR officer he identified at Pacific Rim Consulting, was operating in the Middle East in 2017. With access to intelligence about American military operations through networks that may have extended into the highest levels of American intelligence. Marcus realizes that exposing Pacific Rim Consulting isn't just about preventing future attacks or protecting American national security. It's about getting justice for 6 men who died because someone betrayed American intelligence to Russian operatives. Men whose deaths have haunted him for 3 years and driven him to the edge of self-destruction. But pursuing that justice will require Marcus to reveal his true identity, abandoning his cover as a failed security guard, and risking everything to confront the people responsible for his team's deaths. It means giving up the anonymity that has protected him and facing the possibility that the same people who betrayed his team might target him for elimination. As FBI agents continue their investigation of Pacific Rim Consulting, processing evidence and building cases that will destroy the Russian network, Marcus makes a decision that will determine whether he remains a forgotten alcoholic or reclaims his identity as a CIA counterintelligence officer. The voices of 6 dead men seem to be calling his name again, but this time they're not accusations. They're a demand for justice. He picks up the phone and dials a number he hasn't called in 3 years, a secure line that connects directly to CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. His hands shake as he waits for the call to connect. But it's not alcohol withdrawal this time. It's the nervous energy of someone who's about to step back into a world he thought he'd left forever. This is Marcus Thompson. he says when the call connects, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he's about to set in motion. "I need to come in from the cold." 3:47 p.m., CIA Deputy Director James Morrison arrives at Meridian Tower wearing a business suit that makes him look like any other corporate executive visiting the building for routine meetings. But Marcus recognizes him immediately. Morrison was his handler for 6 years, the person who recruited him for counterintelligence work and supervised his most sensitive operations before everything went wrong in Afghanistan. Morrison finds Marcus in the building's parking garage, away from FBI agents and surveillance cameras that might record their conversation. The two men haven't spoken since Marcus resigned in anger and disgust 3 years ago, but Morrison's presence confirms that the Pacific Rim Consulting discovery has reached the highest levels of American intelligence and triggered responses that extend far beyond routine counterintelligence operations. "You look like hell, Marcus," Morrison says, studying his former agent's appearance with professional concern mixed with genuine worry. "But your mind is obviously still sharp. That was elegant work upstairs, textbook counterintelligence operations." Marcus doesn't smile or acknowledge the compliment. "You knew, didn't you? You knew about the Russian operation, and you were waiting for someone else to discover officially." "We suspected," Morrison admits, his tone carrying the careful neutrality of someone who spent decades managing classified information. "But we needed clean evidence that couldn't be traced back to CIA surveillance or covert operations. Your security guard position provided perfect cover for natural discovery." The revelation hits Marcus like a physical blow, reframing everything he thought he understood about his situation. "You've been watching me for 3 years. You knew I was drinking myself to death, and you used my breakdown as operational cover." Morrison's expression doesn't change, maintaining the professional mask that intelligence officers were when discussing unpleasant necessities. "You were never out of the game, Marcus. You were just playing a different position. The question now is whether you want to come back officially or continue your current role." "My current role is what?" "The departmental alcoholic." "Your current role as the perfect deep cover operative. No one suspects a failed security guard of being CIA. You could disappear into any number of positions where we need someone with your skills but can't risk official exposure." Marcus understands what Morrison is offering: a return to intelligence work, but without acknowledgement, official support, or recognition. He would remain Marcus Thompson, alcoholic security guard, while secretly conducting operations for people who abandoned him when he needed them most. It's the kind of deal that the intelligence community offers to people who are useful but inconvenient, valuable but damaged. "I want answers about Afghanistan," Marcus says, his voice carrying the authority of someone who's earned the right to make demands. "Elena Volkov was operating in the region when my team was killed. I want to know if she was involved." Morrison is quiet for a long moment, weighing the risks of revelation against the benefits of Marcus's continued cooperation. "That investigation is classified above your current clearance level." "Then reinstate my clearance. Officially, I've just handed you the biggest counterintelligence coup in years. I've earned the right to know who betrayed my team." Morrison considers this, then pulls out a secure phone and makes a call that Marcus can't hear, speaking in code words and euphemisms that suggest high-level discussions about classified matters. After several minutes of conversation, Morrison hangs up and turns back to Marcus with an expression that suggests the conversation upstairs didn't go entirely as he hoped. "There's a condition," Morrison says carefully. "You have to complete one more operation before we can discuss Afghanistan. Elena Volkov isn't just SVR. She's the Operations Control Officer, coordinated with assets throughout the Pacific Northwest. We need to roll up her entire network, and you're the only person in position to do it without alerting them to our interests." Marcus realizes that Morrison is asking him to continue his alcoholic security guard cover while conducting a complex counterintelligence operation against trained Russian operatives. It's exactly the kind of mission that requires absolute sobriety perfect operational discipline, and nerves that can handle life or death pressure while maintaining a convincing performance as someone who's barely functional. How long? Marcus asks. 2 weeks. Maybe 3. Long enough to identify all of Volkov's assets and gather evidence for a comprehensive prosecution that will destroy Russian intelligence operations throughout the region. Marcus looks back at Meridian Tower, where FBI agents are still processing evidence from Pacific Rim Consulting. In 2 weeks, he could expose a Russian intelligence network that threatens American national security. He could also finally learn the truth about what happened to his team in Afghanistan. The truth that has haunted him for 3 years and driven him to the edge of self-destruction. I'll need support, communications, technical assistance, backup if things go wrong. You'll have everything you need, Morrison promises. But Marcus, if you're discovered, if your cover is blown, we can't acknowledge your connection to the agency. You'll be on your own. Marcus understands the terms completely. Success brings redemption and answers. Failure brings exposure, prosecution, and possibly death at the hands of Russian operatives who won't hesitate to eliminate threats to their operation. It's the kind of deal that only someone with nothing left to lose would consider accepting. One more thing, Marcus says, when this is over, when I've given you Volkov's network and learned the truth about Afghanistan, I want out. Clean separation, full pension, medical support for the drinking problem. No more games, no more covers, no more lies. Morrison nods, sealing the agreement with the formal precision of someone conducting official business. Agreed. 2 weeks of your best work, and you can disappear into whatever kind of life you want. Marcus shakes Morrison's hand, sealing a deal that will either restore his honor or destroy what's left of his life. As Morrison walks away, Marcus returns to the security desk, pours coffee that doesn't contain bourbon, and begins planning the most dangerous operation of his career. For the first time in 3 years, Marcus Thompson feels like a CIA officer again. The question is whether he can stay sober long enough to complete a mission that will determine his future and potentially save American lives. The alcoholic security guard is about to become the most important man in American counterintelligence. And Elena Volkov has no idea that her carefully planned operation is being watched by someone who knows exactly what she's doing. Day 3 of Operation Redemption. Marcus has established surveillance routines that allow him to monitor Elena Volkov's activities while maintaining his cover as the building's alcoholic security guard. The FBI's investigation of Pacific Rim Consulting has forced the Russian operation to modify their procedures, but they haven't abandoned their mission. Instead, they become more careful, which makes them more dangerous, but also more observable to someone with Marcus's training and experience. Volkov has shifted her base of operations to a coffee shop 3 blocks from Meridian Tower, conducting meetings with assets who can no longer safely visit the compromised office suite. Marcus uses his lunch breaks to conduct foot surveillance, tracking her movements and identify her contacts with the systematic precision of someone who spent 15 years hunting foreign operatives in environments far more dangerous than downtown Seattle. The Russian network is larger and more sophisticated than Marcus initially suspected. Volkov is coordinating with at least 12 different assets, including employees at Boeing Seattle facilities, researchers at the University of Washington's Computer Science Department, and contractors with access to Naval Base Kitsap. The intelligence they're gathering could compromise military aircraft designs, advanced computing research, and submarine deployment schedules that protect American interests throughout the Pacific. But Marcus discovers something even more disturbing as he continues his surveillance. The Russians aren't just gathering intelligence for future use. They're preparing to conduct an active operation that will cause immediate damage to American interests and demonstrate Russian capabilities to adversaries throughout the world. Intercepted communications suggest they're planning to disrupt critical infrastructure during a major military exercise scheduled for next week. The exercise, codenamed Cascade Shield, involves coordinated training between Army, Navy, and Air Force units throughout the Pacific Northwest. It's designed to test American military readiness in the region, but also creates vulnerabilities that foreign adversaries could exploit. If the Russians can disrupt communication networks, power grids, or transportation systems during the exercise, they could demonstrate American weakness while gathering intelligence about military response capabilities. Marcus realizes that his mission has evolved from exposing a spy network to preventing an active attack against American military operations. The stakes have escalated beyond simple counterintelligence to potential acts of war disguised as technical failures or accidents. The failure to stop this operation could result in American casualties and international humiliation that would embolden Russian aggression worldwide. Using his security access and technical skills, Marcus begins mapping the specific infrastructure targets that the Russians have been surveying. Power substations that supply electricity to military bases. Communication towers that carry encrypted military traffic. Transportation choke points that could delay military response times. The pattern reveals a coordinated attack designed to cripple American military capabilities during their most vulnerable training period. Marcus documents everything with the thoroughness of someone who knows that evidence must be unassailable, building a comprehensive case file that proves Russian intent to conduct sabotage operations against American military targets. But he also realizes that preventing the attack will require more than just intelligence gathering. He'll need to take direct action against trained Russian operatives who won't hesitate to kill anyone who threatens their mission. The alcoholic security guard is about to become a one-man counterintelligence strike force. And Elena Volkov is about to learn that the drunk she's been ignoring is actually the most dangerous man she's ever encountered. Marcus contacts Morrison through secure channels, requesting immediate backup and authorization for direct action against the Russian network. The response is swift and uncompromising. The mission must remain covert. No official support can be provided, and Marcus must prevent the attack using only his own resources and skills. Once again, Marcus finds himself abandoned by the intelligence community that trained him. But this time, he prepared for it. 3 years of alcoholism and isolation have taught him to rely on himself alone. If the CIA won't stop the Russian attack, Marcus will stop it himself. He begins planning an operation that will neutralize Elena Volkov's network while maintaining his cover as a failed security guard. It's the kind of mission that would normally require a full CIA team, complete with technical support, backup personnel, and official authorization. But Marcus has advantages that official operatives lack: complete deniability, perfect cover, and nothing left to lose. The mission begins tomorrow night, during the final planning meeting for Cascade Shield. Marcus will have one chance to prevent an attack that could cripple American military readiness and demonstrate Russian superiority in a conflict that most Americans don't even know is happening. Success means redemption, answers about Afghanistan, and a chance to rebuild his life. Failure means death, disgrace, and the knowledge that he failed to protect his country when it needed him most. Marcus Thompson, alcoholic security guard, is about to conduct the most important mission in American counterintelligence history. And this time, he's doing it sober. Day 7, Operation Night Strike. 11:47 p.m., Marcus Thompson sits in a security office, monitoring cameras throughout Meridian Tower while preparing for the most dangerous night of his career. Elena Volkov and her network are meeting tonight to finalize plans for disrupting tomorrow's Cascade Shield military exercise. Marcus has one chance to prevent an attack that could demonstrate American vulnerability while gathering critical intelligence about military capabilities. The Russian operatives believe they're meeting in complete security, using the building's after-hours access to avoid surveillance. What they don't know is that Marcus has been monitoring their communications for a week, mapping their movement patterns and preparing countermeasures for every aspect of their operation. Marcus has spent the past hour making final preparations. His security uniform conceals body armor and communication equipment provided through CIA back channels. His toolkit contains technical devices for disrupting electronic communications and recording evidence. Most importantly, he's maintained perfect sobriety for 7 days, clearing his mind and sharpening reflexes that alcohol had dulled for 3 years. At exactly midnight, Elena Volkov enters the building using a key card cloned from Pacific Rim, consulting's access credentials. She's followed by 3 other operatives, 2 men and 1 woman, who move with the professional precision of people trained in violence and espionage. Marcus tracks their progress through the building's camera system, noting their weapons, equipment, and tactical positioning. The Russians proceed to conference room 847, a large meeting space that Volkov has determined provides optimal security for sensitive discussions. The room has no windows, limited access points, and electronic shielding that prevents outside surveillance of internal communications. It's the perfect location for planning an attack against American military operations. Marcus gives them